Welcome back to another episode, and today we're in a wonderful park just north of Auckland City on the North Island of New Zealand. And what we're going to do today is I do have my Canon 100 to 400mm zoom lens Mark II, and I picked up a second-hand 2x teleconverter Canon Mark II as well, and I'm going to test the combination of these with the Canon R5 Mark II with the adapter. Now, with the full frame mirrorless camera, you don't get as much reach as when you've got a crop sensor. Remember, most crop sensors are 1x4, so pushing a 400 up to 560. So with a full frame, you lose that 1.4. Hence, we're going to experiment with a 2x teleconverter, pushing this up to 800mm, which brings the f-stop up to 11. And then what we want to see is what type of quality we get, what type of reach we get. Does it pay to buy one of these to get that additional reach and possibly sacrifice a little bit of quality? Let's see. We're going to take a couple of images, test it, edit the images with you, and we'll see what these images come out like. Obviously, if you do have a 100 to 500mm or longer, you wouldn't need a 2x teleconverter. I'd rather recommend a 1.4x teleconverter, reducing the f-stop slightly down and possibly a better quality. And obviously prime lenses 600, 800mm or 1200mm, you wouldn't need a teleconverter. And what we're going to try and do today is capture some bird images from the park here, and I'll edit those and we'll see what the quality comes out like. We'll see you just now. Right, with one of our images taken today in the park, and we're going to do a quick editing tutorial and see what sort of quality we get from the setup I used. And this is a New Zealand wood pigeon, and let's see what we can do here. First thing I want to do is just crop it and tidy it up a bit. There's a bit of mess around the side here, and it's a little bit unbalanced, so we're going to do a quick crop. And to keep it proportionally right, just to hold shift down while we crop and move the image into position, I'd say about there, and then hit the edit tool. Right, the first thing I would do is lower the highlights. You see there's a bit of overexposure here and a bit on the breast on the white, so we're going to just tone down those highlights ever so slightly. I'll say to about there. The next step I'll do is adjust the vibrance and saturation. I usually push the vibrance up to between 20 and 30. I'd leave it at 26, it's fine. The saturation, I go very easy on that. I leave it about 5 or 6. Pretty happy with that. Right, the next thing we would like to do is add a mask to the subject, and we go to here and select subject, and AI in Lightroom Classic will detect the subject for us. It's done a pretty good job. And to the subject, I'd just like to increase the saturation as well as increase the clarity, a little bit of texture, and a little bit of dehazing. Right, the next thing we would like to do is select the background. So we're going to add another mask and select the background. And AI has done a pretty good job there. But what it's done is it's added a little bit more of the pigeon, which shouldn't. And what we're going to do is subtract from that mask with a brush. So we're just going to tidy that up there. Tidy up feet and this part of the wing here. And a bit of the foreground of the branch as well. Right, so what we want to do is desaturate the background because we want the emphasis to remain on our subject, which is the pigeon. So we're desaturating the background slightly and just making our subject matter pop. Right, the next thing we would like to do is go back to editing the entire image. So we're going back into the basic mode, and what we're going to do is calibrate the colors, and we're starting down with the blue primaries down the bottom here, and we're just going to play around with these and see what it does. But I'm pretty liking what it does, pushing it up to the right here. Saturation, the blue primaries, and the hues. Sort of more neutral. The green primary, saturation, it's more towards the right. And the hue, either more yellow or more green, and I tend to like it to be a bit more on the green side. On the red primaries, the saturation, really like to make that beak, the eye, and the feet pop a bit, and the hue, a little bit to the red side. And then the overall tint, the shadows, we're going to go that's too green, tend to go more to the purple side, about there. Now that we have the calibration done, we're actually going to fine tune the colors and move up to the color mixer palette, and we'll start off with the saturation, and we'll like to play around with the blues, the aquas, the greens, and the yellows. So starting off with, actually, let's go down right down to magenta, and it's really boosting the beak, the eyes, and the feet a bit. The purples, we want to bring out the purples and some of the feathers there. The blues, not too much, slightly. The aguas, I'd say about there, a little negative. The greens, we don't want to boost the background too much. And the yellows, that's a -2. The oranges, so apply +1, and then the red, +6. And then we're going to go to the luminance. The luminance actually makes those colors brighter and enhances them, but makes them pop lighter or darker. So the red we tend to want to deepen a bit. The oranges, reduce them slightly. The yellows as well. The greens, we actually want to darken them a bit. The aguas, I actually like to take that bit to the positives that really make some of the colors in the feathers pop. And then the blue as well, just increase them slightly. The purple doesn't make a big difference, but I'll say leave them at about +6. And magenta, about +5. Right, now that we've adjusted the colors, there's one thing I forgot to mention. We're going back to this mask of the background. And what we want to do is as well is reduce the clarity on the background. Reason being is we want to place more, once again, more emphasis on the subject, which is the pigeon, and less detail on the background. So we've just reduced the clarity on the back as well as the texture. We want all the texture and the detail on the subject and less distraction around the background. So by reducing the clarity and the texture of the background, that does definitely help. Now, just for finishing, we go down to the effects panel, and what I'd like to do here is introduce a vignette, which just darkens the outer edges of the image, just placing a little bit more emphasis on the subject, or the center part of the image. And then the overall adjustments in light, it does look slightly dark. So what we're going to do is actually just lift the shadows. In other words, reduce the shadows. Just bring a little bit of brightness into the image and possibly a little bit more whites. Slightly like that, and that looks a lot better. And then the final procedure I usually do just to denoise the entire image is go down here. There's a noise reduction function in Lightroom Classic, and you hit the denoise. It takes a couple of minutes to do, highly recommended, and just to overall tidy up the image and just increase that sharpness and detail. So once I've done that, we'll show you the end product. Right, the final denoising has been done, and this is the image. Just the last little touch. I'd like to adjust a little bit of exposure onto the subject. So I'm going to the subject mask again, and all we want to do there is reduce the shadows, so push it more into the whites, just to make the subject a little bit brighter and increase the whites a little bit as well, ever so slightly. And that is the final image. I hope you enjoyed that basic tutorial, but there again you can see what can be achieved with a 2x teleconverter with a 100 to 400 millimeter Canon M2 zoom lens with a mirrorless full frame camera. The subject was about approximately 20 meters from me. It was quite a large pigeon, but overall crisp, sharp, good quality. And with this Adobe Lightroom Classic or any other software, you can see the results you can get. Another example here of an image taken with the 100 to 400 millimeter zoom lens with a 2x teleconverter. You can see how much I've cropped into this image. I was more than 30 meters away from the subject, and this is cropping in, and we can look after denoising it and some editing touches. Image is sharp, quite satisfactory. Another good image taken about more than 30 meters away from me, and lower light conditions, was sun was already setting, and this was in the shadow of the hill, and pretty happy with the image. You can see how far I've even cropped in. If you look at, there's the image on the outside with the 400mm with the 2x teleconverter, and the amount I've actually cropped in and denoised the image in Lightroom Classic, and overall the image is crisp and sharp, and I definitely happy with it. Is once again the question, is the 2x teleconverter worth it to boost your 400mm zoom lens up to 800? For sure, definitely. Picked up the teleconverter secondhand, and while you're waiting or saving for that longer lens, this really does work, and pretty happy with the result. Yeah, before I say goodbye and end this video, I'd like to just share with you a couple of images recently taken on bird photography here in New Zealand. So I hand over to you, take it away and enjoy the images, and I'll see you soon in the next video.